Welcome to another episode of Rivals. I'm Scott Mitchell. He's Jason Buck. We're the hosts of this crazy show, and we actually get along most of the time. Rivals.
All the time.
What's that?
All the time, other when you're being snarky and picking on me.
Oh, I never am snarky and pick on you, Jason. I would never do that.
No,
Anyways.
quarterbacks don't have that
No,
tendency.
not at all. You got something poking out of your ear there, though, Jason, but it's okay. We'll check it later. All right,
Yeah.
So Rivals has arrived. Now it's time to go off to the NFL. And there's been an interesting trend, Jason, and kind of wanted to get your thoughts on this. So they have an old rule that it's almost like they've revitalized it, sacking the quarterback and getting a personal foul for roughing the passer, which is an old rule. Old meaning it was around in 1995. It was intended for defensive players who got a hold of a defenseless quarterback and then put all of their weight on the quarterback as they were bringing them to the ground. And there's been this huge emphasis on it this season, and it's become almost joke-like. On the other side of it, you have a brand new rule that we've talked about, this leading with your head rule that's getting very little attention, and it's hardly being called at all. What's your take on this, Jason?
Well, I think the old. Let's talk about the old rule first from '95, and now they're enforcing it way too much. I mean, come on. I'll use the example of Matthews, right? At Green Bay, he had was fined and flagged 2 weeks in a row for doing exactly what you're saying. You know, putting his weight onto the sack, and that was crap. I mean, those were two beautiful sacks, legal in every way, and just good, clean football. Using his shoulder, keeping his head to the side, wrapping him up, driving him into the ground. I mean, they were beautiful sacks. So I was just sickened that the NFL even called that on Matthews. You know, I think it started, and it was necessary. The sack that really ended Jim McMahon's career was it actually a Green Bay player, a D lineman? I don't know if you remember it. But, I mean, a full 2 seconds after McMahon had gotten rid of the ball or handed it off, I can't remember. He was way away from the play. It was a full 2 seconds, at least. I'd like to go back and review it because the D lineman runs up to him and grabs him and just picks him up and does a WWE wrestling body slam with him, buries him to the ground, separates McMahon's shoulder and stuff, and he was never the same after that.
But don't you think you can tell, Jason, the difference between a guy who's just trying to make a clean tackle on the quarterback and a guy who's maliciously trying to drive his whole weight on top of the player? And I just think the nature and the continuation of the play with a defensive player tackling the quarterback and going to the ground is one thing. But it's really obvious when a guy is just, it's like when he's obviously trying to just take him to the ground and hurt him, where he wraps him up, and then right before he gets to the ground, he lets go, and he just puts all that weight on, and there's a huge difference there. And I just think the NFL needs to look more at the intent of the player as opposed to the action of the play, because it's a very different action when a guy's trying to kill it. Trust me, I know the action.
Yeah,
and I know guys do it too.
Right. I mean, if I got to put my shoulder through you, legally, and wrap you up tight and drive you into the ground so hard it knocked you out or put you out of the game, I would be okay with that. But if I did it in a clean way, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't want to do it in a cheap shot way. I wouldn't want to do it the way the guy did against Jim McMahon. I wouldn't, like you said, with malicious intent, with good, clean tackling technique. I agree with some of the rules, like, because we used our head like missiles, and we were taught to do it when I played. And we'd whip our head, I'd whip my head into the side of guys' helmets because we were taught to do it. And you knew the side of the helmet was weaker, and you'd knock dudes out. And that's just the way we played the game. Take your head out of it, which I agree with. And I think the Matthews sacks were perfect examples of class, no malicious intent, good, clean football, a guy making a hard sack. They were just ideal sacks.
So, Jason, what about this new rule with leading with the helmet? Because I know we talked about it, and it just doesn't seem like it's being called. And it seemed like it was problematic even when they actually created the rule. Problematic on both sides of the ball. Offensive players leading and defensive players, specifically linebackers and running backs. And I just never have seen how you could actually interpret this rule or even understand, how you could play football without it to some degree. And it just seems to be fairly non-existent, like it's not even being called. And I'm curious, what do you feel about that as well?
Well, I read through the NFL rules of it exactly today, in preparation for the show. And going linear, it was key for me. So somebody's going linear and leading with their head. I think that's an easier call, right?
Right.
But and that's okay. If somebody's going linear, that means you're launching and you're going head first. Okay, that's like the old missile days, which are what we're dealing with, all the head injuries you get away from. But I'm telling you, dude, down the line of scrimmage, and you're 18 inches to 2 feet apart at your helmets, and you're massively strong, fast guys squatting the world, lifting the world, and that ball snaps and you come off at each other, there is no catching each other with your hands. They literally say, strike with your hands first. And you're not going to catch a 320-pound offensive lineman by catching him with your hands first. And he's squatting 800 pounds, right? It's not going to happen. You have crown of the helmet, contact on the line of scrimmage. You have the targets. You're striking via the neck. You're striking, crown to crown. It's literally physically impossible, I think, in the line of scrimmage. Now, pass rush, okay, the offensive linemen are kick stepping back and a more passive, move versus run blocking you. And so that's not going to have a head-to-head contact. But run play, come on. And guys are coming at each other full speed. Yeah,
do you think that's why it's not being
head on?
You think that's why it's not being called then, Jason?
I think they're using some
almost
common
physiologically
sense.
it's impossible the way it's written and everything.
Oh, absolutely. In the line of scrimmage, it is physiologically impossible. And now, if a guy goes linear for the hit on a tackle, absolutely, I think that's an easy call to make.
Yeah.
But you get inside the line of scrimmage, Scott, and what about a fullback H-back coming out just screaming through the gap, to run a lead block on a linebacker? You're going to catch him with your hands?
Yeah, I agree, and I've always felt this way about it. I don't understand how they've called it, and we thought that there was going to be a lot more with this, and a lot of people were really kind of concerned during the preseason, about how to tackle, how to engage players, and it's just kind of been, for the most part, a non-issue. So,
yeah, the tackling has really changed in the league, and I'll tell you that. I talked to the old D coordinators like Pettibone and Dick LeBeau. You listen to the old head coaches that come out, and they say the biggest thing that's changed in the game for them is tackling.
Yeah,
the league are not as good at tacklers anymore because of all the new rules that have come in, because we're not putting head across on tackles. Right, we're not tackling with our face mask right through the guy's chest, which I agree had to change. Right, I'm not saying it. I'm just saying it makes tackling. You're not as good a tackler without those techniques. When you're coming in on the backside and trying to shoulder tackle and use this hawk technique they want to use now and these other things, you're arm tackling more, and there's more broken tackles. And there's going to be more points on the board. Defenses aren't going to be as effective. A
lot of guys are saying the game's different. I mean, even Tom Brady said this is a glorified college game. The physicalness has definitely moved out of it. All right, well, this edition of Rivals is now over.
Oh, I'm going to miss you, man.
I know. Go back to your corner, Jason.
Corner till next week.
Yep. All right, he's not Scott Mitchell.
Yeah, I'm not Jason Buck.
Exactly, you're not Jason Buck. I got him to do it. All right. Text Rivals to 65537. Go to all those social sites and like us. Dial us in on that phone of yours. Till then, we'll catch you soon.
All right.